Hello and welcome, Exiles, to me making the poor choice of letting chat tell me, yes, make the version of the build that has no defenses, because AoE and damage is fun, and where you're looking at a character with 105% self-shock and literally no defenses. And do not be fooled by the initial footage of this video. It took me about 10 maps before I did a full clear of a map without getting one-tapped by some random monster in between trying to proc my next Galvanic Field. Now, this is just to showcase how crazy the AoE scaling is on this skill, as well as the potential of maybe fun this could be if we can just figure out a way to make this character where it still has defenses. Now, in short, basically, how do we have such big AoE? Phantasmal, the ult quality for Galvanic Field, gives us +1 radius per 10% shock. You put that in Dialas, you put that in Ashes, all of a sudden, in total, I'm getting not +1 for my ult quality, I'm getting +4 radius per 10 shock, and the base skill has +1 radius per shock to begin with. Long story short is, with a 105% shock, this is 50 base radius. In terms of PoE, that is massive AoE, before we've gotten into the fact that you can also scale increased AoE and multiply on top of that to make the circle bigger. Essentially, with our character, Forbidden Power gives us about 48% AoE. I don't believe I have AoE anywhere else on my tree or gear. You can check my PoB in the description, but point is, 48% increased AoE, and we're covering a circle that is farther than our entire screen. Moral of the story is, you get a character that even pumps the AoE more than that, and you're going to be hitting probably the limit of what the game even renders and calculates for in terms of damage. I think at some point, that's too big of an AoE. Personally, I would rather see the dome in my screen rather than just have an overlay of red hexagons because the circle's so big. But you can make up your own mind on that. This is just to showcase how crazy it could be. Ultimately, I think the real play is not Dialas, it's not Ashes. Frankly, with just 2 radius per 10 shock, 20 base radius, that's still pretty big. You can still get a pretty big circle, but it'll just be a dome in your build, and you'll be running around, and it'll be zapping things. It'll still be pretty cool. That would allow you to actually have a character with defenses, because you could get a chest piece, and you could get something like Eternal Damnation, and you could actually scale sub-level defense to try to mitigate this shock effect. Because, for example, Eternal Damnation is multiplicative and not additive with increases in reduction in its damage, Eternal Damnation can essentially almost counter shock, because you can get up to like 40% reduced elemental damage taken, and that's before the shock, so it's like cutting the damage in half. Other options I think are probably going to be necessary is some form of Transcendence or Juggernaut, straight up Juggernaut, to get the armor scaling to then mitigate the elemental damage. My thought process is, ultimately, I think I want to try an Inquisitor setup and try to go for Transcendence, probably. I'm not 100% decided. Maybe I could get away with just Eternal Damnation and maybe Doppelgangers, guys. I haven't really thought about it a ton. Point is, this is something I would still like to investigate and try to set up a actual well-rounded character and not just a ZHP meme that has big AoE and big explosions, because I think there's something here in terms of an auto bomber that is cool. That being said, that's not even half of the problem. The other half of the problem is, how do you get a big shock on yourself? Well, there is basically 2 options that I found that work. So, to start off with, self-damage, if you're going to try to scale a shock off the self-damage, either the damage from Storm Secret, the damage from a Scold's Bridle with a bunch of fizz taken as, the damage from a Doedre's Elixir, which makes you take chaos damage and then do like a Searing Purity. Point is, I've tested it all. Moral of the story is, even if you hit for self-damage that deals 100% of your life pool, the shock you're going to get is base 50%. You're going to get a 50% shock on yourself. Then, to scale that, you just can't. Increased effective shock on your tree, Elementalist shock node, all that stuff, that does not scale the damage self-hitting you. It doesn't scale the shock. So, for me, realistically, the only 2 ways I've found that you're going to get a shock above 50% is either with Vessel of Victor with a base 50% shock, and that 50% shock does scale with the Elemental Lightning ailment effect on the tree, or you use a Malagara's Belt, you shock an enemy, the shock reflects back to you, then you cast Galvanic Field, you wait for Storm Secret to hit an enemy, and then that hits you, and the chance to shock is procced, but you have the big shock from Malagara's Virtuosity. It's a mouthful, but moral of the story is, Malagaros, I think, is the play if you want to build defense easily, and you don't have to go like harebrained into this much Flaccid State just to make Vessel of Victor work. This is completely, I think, more of on the meme setup of things. A Pathfinder could pull up Vessel of Victor. Other than Pathfinder, I think you have to go Malagaros to get that self-shock to be large. Moral of the story is, this character, it's some of the my favorite aesthetics ever in terms of like this cool lightning dome around you and just zapping things. I think it's really fun, but to make it work is really, really hard, because when you have to start with having a big shock on your character and then make your character tanky on top of that, it's just pretty hard. On top of that, you also have to have the difficulty of including a gear slot for Storm Secret, Scold's Bridle, something that is going to hit you back. On top of that, you have to have a you have to have Reckless Defense, or you have to have Self-Curse Conductivity. You have to get a way to make your character get shocked. So there are some difficulties. There is some rub there. There's some friction, and that's a problem I'm going to have to maybe figure out and solve if I want to try to make this an actual well-rounded character and not just a ZHP meme that's kind of cool to walk around with every now and then. Unfortunately, tomorrow and over the next week, I'm actually going to be doing a build challenge. Ruetoo challenged this to me. He gave me this challenge, which is basically, both going to be doing it, and maybe some other PoE content creators will do it as well, which is basically in one play session, essentially 5, 6, 7 hours of playtime, we are going to respec a character, come up with a fresh build, create that character in under 10 divines, and see how many Ubers we can kill with it, and essentially keep track of points. And it's going to be me versus him, and maybe some other PoE content creators will do it, because it doesn't have to be done simultaneously. People can do it like a week from now or 2 weeks from now and see how much they score. And it's basically, we're going to be creating original builds fresh from our head and just try to make something that see if it works, and then see if we can beat each other in this system. So I'll probably be making hopefully a video per day for these builds I make, and we'll see how it goes. I might completely fail and make a bunch of builds that can't do Ubers, or maybe I'll make a few builds that can do Ubers in under 10 divines, and it could be a lot of fun. Point is, I'm going to be busy with that, so I can't really screw around too much more with Galvanic Field until after that. And for all I know, after 7 days of just doing a bunch of weird build ideas, I might be so interested and distracted with some other build I might not do to Galvanic Field. But point is, this might be, who knows? It could be the last video for Galvanic Field. I might do another one. Maybe I'll even try to do Galvanic Field as a build for one of the characters I do in one of these 7 days. Point is, that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed the self-Galvanic Field memery and stuff we've planned out here. I think there's something here for making an auto-bombing style character and having fun with it. I'm still not dialed in on how to make that happen to the best of my ability, but I'm going to keep trying at it most likely. And in the future, from now, hopefully I can revisit Galvanic Field and make something cool with it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it inspires you to maybe have a solution that I'm not seeing here that could make it work, and you could be the one. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed the video. As always, take care, Exiles, and peace out.